Hello and welcome to our Caregiver series. I'm Ashley DeLatour, staff member at Futures Northwest, and this is...
Hi, I'm Christina Winstead. I'm from the Washington Student Achievement Council, and I work with the 12th Year Campaign.
And today we're going to be talking about navigating verification, and this is a series of videos designed for caregivers and for folks that are just interested in learning about verification, why, the hows, the whats. So tune in, Christina's going to walk us through.
So yes, we're going to talk about verification, which is a process that's part of the financial aid process. It's one of the steps for about a third of our students. So today we're going to talk about what verification is. We're going to talk about why students are selected for verification and how they're selected, so that if your student's selected for verification, you know what is occurring and that you can help them navigate that process. We're going to talk about some common documents that you're going to need for verification. Each verification is going to be different. So if your friend gets picked, maybe your friend's daughter gets picked for verification and your son got picked for verification, they may need different documents. It's based upon the application of the student and what they're verifying. So you want to make sure that if you have multiple families that have been selected for this, it's okay to talk about the process, but it's going to look a little different for each student. And then we'll talk about resources that are available to you. So really, verification, it's pretty simple. It's a process that colleges as well as the federal government use. And it's just really to confirm data that's reported on a financial aid application to make sure it's accurate. And so it's just a process that about a third of students go through. The most important thing, though, is that if your students select for verification, is to make sure that you complete the process, because they cannot award money, financial aid, to your student until that process is completed. So like I said before, about 30% of filers are selected for verification. And so some people are selected at random and some are verified by the school. So like I had a student, they put in the wrong information on their income. They reported their parents' income and then they reported their parents' income again as their own income. A financial aid officer saw that and went, I don't know if that 18-year-old student really made $62,000 last year. I mean, they could have, but they wanted to double check. And so when they got selected for verification, the student went, oh, no, I made about $1,200. Awesome. So then they could adjust the income back, and that student was available to have more aid applied to their account just because they verified the information. So some are going to be selected at random, some it's to clarify things. The biggest thing in this process, if you're picked for verification, if your student is picked, is to ask questions when you get stuck and to complete that process. So it typically is nothing that you've done wrong. It is just that, like, I've been selected for verification. Other people who have gotten financial aid have probably been selected as well. And it's just one of those processes. So there's a couple ways students can be selected. So they're selected to verify information. They can be selected by the Department of Education or by the school that they're going to. And they're going to be requesting a specific document. It's important to respond to these as quickly as possible. So your student will have a financial aid deadline. So there's an admissions deadline, the date in which they need to apply to that college to be considered for admissions. But there's also a financial aid deadline, and that's the date that the student needs to have what's called a complete file for them to determine if they can provide funding to the student or not. So if your student is selected for verification and you haven't finished that process, they don't have a complete file, and they have to have that complete file by that deadline. So you want to start this process as soon as you find out about it. So some commonly asked for documents. The first one is going to be a tax transcript. So I know a lot of families will have access to the taxes that they filed. That is awesome. But typically the colleges are going to ask for what's called a tax transcript. And it's a summary of your taxes that you can get from the IRS. We can show you the forms here in a couple minutes how you can request those. If you cannot get a copy of your tax transcript right now, I encourage you to please reach out to your financial aid office to ask them about other documents you might be able to provide, especially during COVID-19. If there's a lack of access to documents, you have to reach out to that college as soon as possible to let them know what you do have access to and what challenges you're experiencing in the process. So one tip that you can do right now to help you prepare for potentially being selected for verification is just when you do your taxes, 2019 taxes, you can request your tax transcript right now. And you can do that online. The paper applications are currently not being processed, but if you have access to the online ability to pull your IRS records, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second, print up a copy of your tax transcript and put it in with your taxes. That way, if your student's selected for verification, you've got everything in one spot. So this is the IRS website and how to access these transcripts. So there's different types of tax transcripts. There is a tax transcript. There's a letter of non-filing. So let's say you didn't file any taxes. You didn't have to last year. That's fine. They're just going to want to verify that you didn't file taxes. And they're going to do that through a letter of non-filing. You can go right to the IRS's website and you can either request this information online. You have to have some access to certain types of credit in order to do this. And if not, you can submit a request by submitting a form 4506T, and that's a request for a tax transcript, which the link is on here, but we'll also show you what it looks like in a second. You can send that in and they're going to process them as they get back to processing paper documents over time.
Mm-hmm.
So to request these documents online, you're going to need your social security number, your date of birth. You're going to need to have access to a personal account number. And to do that, you have to either have a credit card, a mortgage, a home equity loan, a line of credit like a car, a mobile phone with your name on the account. Not all of our families are going to have access to these things. If you don't, no problem. That's fine. It just means you're going to send in a paper request for a tax transcript.
Now, I have a question. What if you do not have a social security number? What would you do?
That's fine. So you're going to request it through, because if you filed taxes, you'll be able to request that documentation using your ITIN number,
Okay.
and you'll request it via paper instead of the online system.
Okay.
And then this is what that document looks like to request a copy of a tax transcript. This is the 4506. And it is a request form that you can get right off the IRS's website. You can fill it out and then send it to them, and they will send you copies of the tax transcripts that you're requesting. And so you can do one of these for each year that you want those taxes requested.
Can it be done online? Can you submit the form online, or do you have to print it out and mail it?
Unfortunately, you're going to have to print out this one and mail it. So this is a great time to practice mailing skills with students of filling out an envelope with a formal address on it. But unfortunately, yes, this is one of those documents that has to be hard copy.
Okay.
Another thing for students I'm finding is students who do have Social Security cards, that they've either lost their card or they accidentally gave it away to a friend. Had that happen already for a student? You trade all sorts of things, but not your Social Security cards. This is a great time if a student does not have access to their Social Security card to request one. Mm-hmm. And you can request those right online. And it has similar criteria to request them, and you can request them via a paper application as well. If your student has a Social Security number but doesn't have their card and you don't have access to it, this is a great time to get those, because they'll need it for things like work study and maybe other access for employment. So it's a great time to start gathering all the students' records and putting them in one spot for the student. Another way that you can navigate verification is by using the data retrieval tool. This is a tool that connects IRS data to your student's FAFSA. Mm-hmm. It says only available for the FAFSA, not for the WAFSA, and so it imports that information. To use this, there are some criteria. The parent has to have a Social Security number. You can't file a Puerto Rican or a foreign tax return. If you've filed a foreign tax return, you're going to have to do the manual entry. If your family's marital status is different than, so let's say they're listed as unmarried but living together, that one they're going to require, because it's two different tax documents, they're going to require a paper application. Okay. And manually enter that information. So it's just some certain situations where you can't use the data retrieval tool, but if you can, this is a great way. When you go through and on the website, you can actually just import the information, and then they've considered that coming directly from the IRS. So that can help change the status of verification for a student just by importing that data. Mm-hmm. And then we have resources and ways to help. So of course, you're always going to have Futures Northwest amazing resources available for financial aid and scholarships. And then we also have our 12th year campaign resources. And this is going to be for navigating financial aid and admissions, including the verification process. Yeah. And so if you get stuck in verification, you just want to make sure, continue and persist through that process so they can process your student's financial aid form and be able to provide an award letter.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Christina. This was hugely helpful. I learned so much, and I appreciate your wisdom and your time. and sharing that with us.
Well, thank you so much.
Yay! So if you are interested in any of the links that we shared, we will share them in the program description, so you can easily connect with all of those there. And if you have additional questions, feel free to email myself or Christina. We'll leave our contact information there as well. And we hope that you all get through this, and we're cheering you on. See you next time.
You got this.
Woo!